Hi everyone, this is Longvo. Today I'm analyzing one of my games on chess.com. Today is August the 22nd. I'm playing white, rated 1160, and my opponent playing black is rated 1171. So I start off with e4 and he goes e5. So now I play f4, the King's Gambit, which is one of my favorites. Because it's just pure action, um, lots of sacrifices and things like that. So I really enjoy playing that way. And he takes with e takes f, and I go bishop to c4. So normally I would go the knight, but today I wanted to try going the bishop first and see if he would deliver check. Because if he did, I would simply move the king, lose the ability to castle, but it's fine. There is a way to play that way, and later on I will simply develop the knight with temple. So I think it's not a bad way to play, and I'm just exploring different variations. My opponent does not deliver check, so he goes h6. So I'm not sure what's the point of that move. I don't think it's a good move. I think he should be developing or doing something more productive than moving this pawn, because there's no real threats going on here. So I develop with knight to f3, and he goes knight to c6. So I go d4. So I did have the option to go d3 as well, but so d3 would be a little bit safer, having a more stable center. But I decided to be a little bit more aggressive, and when I saw his knight there, I was thinking perhaps later on I could get more space. But then because the f pawn's missing, if I do later on push up here, this pawn here is, even now this pawn here is undefended, right? But at this point I have more space, and he goes f6. So same thing, I'm not sure why. Perhaps opening the diagonal for his knight here. Just kidding. So yeah, so it's just taking away the a nice square for the knight here, and also blocking off the queen. So I take with bishop takes f4, and he pushes with g5, kicking away the bishop, and I simply retreat to bishop e3, defending the d pawn here. So right now there's three defenders. So he goes d6, opening the diagonal for the light squared bishop, probably with the idea to eventually pin the knight. It's a common thing when the knight here is defending the d4 pawn and the other knight is threatening it, and one way to put pressure on that pawn is to exchange the bishop for the knight, and then the pawn hangs. But in this case, that's why I sort of overprotected it, so that it doesn't really tie down the queen. So now I castle short, because here we have a nice semi-open file. This pawn here is totally backwards. It is a good target. So bishop to g4, pinning the knight, and c3. So same thing, over protecting this pawn here. It's important for me to really establish a strong center at this point. Yes, the queen is eventually going to go somewhere else, and also this move opens up the diagonal for the queen. I'm not too worried about him exchanging here, because there's always the rook protecting the knight, so it doesn't mess up the pawns. Queen to e7. I guess he's getting ready to castle queen side. He's also attacking this pawn here. So knight to d2, protecting the pawn, and he castles queenside. So now because I know where to attack, so now I'm gonna push pawns with b4, and the idea is to eventually kick that knight away, because now the knight is the only defender of that king right now. And he goes f5. So now he's trying to open the center. The queen is there with the pawn, and then I only have one defender. So at this point I thought that it would be a good opportunity to exert more pressure towards the king side, and I'm trying to open up this b file here to eventually use the rooks. Taking here, I don't think it's a good move. Obviously the bishop hangs. That's number one. Number two is I could have perhaps moved up to try to keep it as a little bit more closed, but same thing. This would open up the d file for the rook, pinning this this knight here, and plus the knight here is also here, and the knight is pinned, so I would simply be losing that pawn. So so I decided, you know, at this point I'm not gonna defend this position. Let's counterattack on the queen side here. So queen goes to a4, putting pressure on the a7 pawn, with the idea of pushing up here to kick out the knight, and then I will take, and the king will be in trouble because now the bishop is close by. Options of moving the knights. So f takes e, threatening my knight, and that was fine. I would simply go knight to e1. Not the most active placement for the knight, but it does open up the f file, so if he ever moves that rook and queen, that bishop is hanging. And also here I do have the option of later on using the knight to attack this king. So now he tries to open the center with d5. So I could have simply retreated the bishop, but I thought that, you know, fine, the bishop is important, but right now his king side here, he's sort of neglecting it. So I decided to go b5 instead to so if he takes, then I would simply take, and if he does take back, then I'm up a pawn here, and plus we have this open file, and that king is in big trouble. So he didn't take, he went queen to a3, offering an exchange. So I think that my position is much stronger right now. He doesn't have any threats on my king side. His king side, you know, I'm not really threatening him either, but my pawn is more advanced, and my pieces are, the development is complete, whereas he's got 3 undeveloped pieces here. So I didn't want to exchange, so I go queen to c2, and so queen to c2, and then he goes h5. So now he freed up his rook a bit, perhaps threatening to push the pawns down. Nothing wrong with that, but I feel that it's kind of slow versus using minor pieces, and right here there's great opportunities to use the minor pieces. Maybe this knight should even come back here to help defend the king. And b takes c6, and d takes c4, and knight takes c4 with temple, threatening the queen. And over here this pawn is also hanging there. So at this point, whether he takes or I take works for me, because I wanted to open that file. So queen goes back to a6, threatening the c pawn, and so I kind of like this move, the next move here, knight to e5, defending the pawn, threatening a fork here, and I could take his only active piece if I wanted to. So that's I think is a good move. And of course he wants that rook to stay on the 8th rank there, so he goes rook to e8. And this is an outpost. Nobody can really kick out that knight unless he's okay with trading his dark squared bishop. And then I go c takes b7 check, and instead of taking it with the queen, which I feel would have been a stronger move, he takes with the king. So king takes b7, and it gives me a chance to develop my rook with temple. So rook to b1 check, and the king goes back to c8. So my next move now is queen takes e4. So really I don't like that x-ray to be in the rook's x-ray, but I am threatening a checkmate here. So he saw that and he went c6. So of course the knight is pinned. I'm not going to take. And so now I'm thinking of ways to somehow penetrate into the closer to the king here. So one way is to deliver check here if that bishop wasn't there. Another way would have been to perhaps go here first, and then you know, make some threats to kick out that rook, and then if let's say the rook, if he goes here, then I can simply fork the rooks. The other option is he could attack the queen. I would simply improve the position, and then this bishop here is sort of hanging, and then threatening check here. Also, this bishop is in trouble. So I was just thinking of ways to somehow penetrate the position. So hold on. So now he goes. Yeah. So after he blocks, I go bishop takes g5. So now adding another attacker, taking away this dark square. So he's in trouble because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 potentially active pieces. He doesn't have. He's not even done development. The only threat here is the queen and the light squared bishop. So he goes bishop to takes e2, threatening the rook there. I'm not concerned because well, he just gave up his the f5 square here, so I took advantage with queen to f5 check, and there's no way to go here or here. He could go here, but then it's checkmate. So the only move, he blocks with the rook to e6, queen takes e6 check, only move king to c7, and then checkmate.